Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Brian E. Roach and Noah Freeman.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast, brought to you this week by the check that didn't clear to the referees from the Patriots. Yeah, I said it, I don't care. And I feel good. I feel real good, and I'm sure most of you do too. My name is Brian Roach, the host who doesn't like toast, but sure as heck likes a win over the New England Patriots. And that is what we are going to talk about today. And to help me out, because Joe Kuzma was at the game and may be joining us on a call-in later, but in the meantime, SCU contributor and statistician par excellence, Noah Freeman is here. Noah, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, of course, after what we just witnessed, at least at the end of the game. My heart's still pounding. I feel like I have to have a heart attack at the end of every single game. But you know what? This week, it was finally worth it. Not just because the Steelers won and keeping their playoff hopes alive. Regardless of all that, they finally beat the New England Patriots at home. And it's a great day to be alive.
Absolutely. It's just KJ, one of the other folks in our Steel City Underground back room, she tweeted out, "Doesn't matter what the rest of the season is like now. I'm happy. This is all that mattered." Now, I get it. I won't go that far, but I get that feeling. This victory can take some bitter taste out of the rest of the season if it doesn't pan out the way it goes, or the way that we would like it to go. But it also can be a springboard. This is the kind of victory we've been trying to get, right? A statement victory. That's what this is. This is a statement victory. And the funny thing about this is, I think pretty much all season we expected that statement to be made by the offense. But in this game, that's not what happened.
It was the defense, exactly. And I was just talking to you about the defense and the point totals that the Patriots put up today. Because when you think New England Patriots and Tom Brady, you don't think 10 points. You think at least something higher than 10 points. So I was going through at least the Patriots' recent records the past few years for how many points they've scored. Because I was like, it's got to have been a really long time ago since the Patriots scored 10 or fewer points. And so here's what I found. It's the least amount of points scored by the Pats since week 4 of 2016 when the Bills shut them out 16-0. But that was when Tom Brady was suspended. So if you want to keep going back further, where you have a Tom Brady Patriots team, you got to go to Tom Brady and the Pats scored 10 points in Week 17 of 2015. But that was at the Dolphins. And if you want to just keep, I went back even further because that's the one team that the Patriots have actually can't get past is the Dolphins in Miami, as we saw, of course, last week. But if you go back to, you have to go all the way back to playing with Brady against some team that's basically not the Dolphins in the Dolphins. You have to go back to October 6th of 2013, week 5 of 2013, where Brady and the Patriots scored 10 or fewer points.
Wow. And wait, tell me again, what week was that?
Week 5 of 2013.
Right. I'm curious how far you'd have to go back to find out when they did it in December.
Oh wow. We would have to stop this podcast and start in a couple hours to keep going back on that statistic.
Yeah, because I mean that's the thing, and you know the gushing announcers and all through the pregame, the Patriots December, blah 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 blah, and I get it. You know, it's December football, and generally speaking, the Patriots don't lose in December. A lot of that has to do with the fact that they're usually playing either the Jets or the Bills or the Dolphins in New England. But the Patriots don't usually lose in December because that's when it really counts. And this is now their second loss in a row. But on top of that, this is this is a team that, they put up 40 plus against Kansas City, and admittedly Kansas City's defense isn't that great, but and that was in New England. But this is a pretty impressive performance, considering that the offense did its normal vanishing act in the second half and disappeared. They put up some points in the first half, but they managed just enough three in the second half to, I guess, fend off any late swelling. But the defense really took it into their own hands. Joe Hayden with an incredible interception to stifle one Patriots drive, and then just consistent pressure, consistent, solid defense. I mean, yes, they made one huge grievous error where they gave up the huge touchdown to, I think, Hogan early in the game. But once that passed, they rode that wave, and the only thing they gave up the rest of the game is a field goal. And it had somebody said to you prior to this game, the Steelers will give up a touchdown in the first half, but only 3 points the rest of the game, you'd have been like, I don't think that's possible.
Yeah, and I do want to go back on the statement that I just said, because now I'm going to feel like an idiot. But honestly, I don't care, because we just won. That the Patriots scored 10 points when they lost to Tennessee and when they lost to Detroit. But you know what? That's okay. I don't care, because this is the third time this season that the Patriots have only scored 10 points, and they lost all three of those games.
Yeah, and look, we got to break this down a little bit, and I want to. I'll save the defense for the second part of this. And let's talk a little bit about the offense, because there's still some concerns here. This is an offense that just seems to not have any gears left in the second half, or continues to shoot themselves in the foot. Like, overall, Ben was 22 of 34 for 235 yards, 2 TDs, 2 interceptions, a 79.9 rating. No receiver had more than 4 receptions. But a slew of receivers had receptions. The bright spot in this offense was definitely Jalen Samuels, who ran the ball 19 times for 142 yards, which is a ridiculous 7.5-yard average. He had a 25-yard long run and looked really far different. Now, that may be much more of a comment on the Patriots defense, but the Steelers tried a lot of different plays that I had not seen them run. A lot of misdirection stuff, especially that little pitch that would go to the right, and then the entire play would flip and go to the left. And it's a play I know they used to run a lot, but I haven't seen them running that. So maybe they put that stuff in over this week specifically because they thought they could do something with it with Jalen Samuels, or they saw something in the Patriots defense that they were going to over pursue on a play like that. But did you notice that as well?
Yeah, I did. And right before I get to the Jalen Samuels thing, you talked about the Pittsburgh receiving, and no one got more than 4 receptions. I get what you're saying. I see it as also two things. I think I'm going to lean more towards your thing, but I also see it as at least Ben was distributing the ball pretty evenly this game, because there were 3 receivers that had 4 receptions. What is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 receivers got the ball, which isn't like, because you can see Ben throwing it to 10, 11, 12 different receivers sometimes, but at least he was sharing the ball. But going back to Jalen Samuels, I think his game was much better this week for a couple different reasons. I think the first one, not necessarily the main one, but I think the first one is the offensive line was just completely different than they were last week, because if you look at last week, the second worst rush defense, and Jalen Samuels, I tweeted this out, Jalen Samuels had more rushing yards in the first drive than he did all of last week. So you just see, if no one could run the ball last week off of the second worst rushing team, at the beginning of this week, I was really thinking, all right, if we don't have James Conner on Sunday because his eligibility, I don't even know I'm tripping over words right now. I'm so pumped up. His availability, that's the word I was looking for, was on question all the way up until basically yesterday. So I was thinking at the beginning of the week, if we don't have James Conner, I don't know what we're going to do, because if we can't establish a run, the Raiders of all teams, just completely stuffed our run attack last week. But offensive line got much more push, and I think the biggest part was that Jalen Samuels just got carries in practice for the second week in a row, because you could tell the game had just slowed down for him much more. He was waiting for blockers to go out in front of him, and you could tell that he just actually started to get to know what this offensive line does for him. It's kind of what Le'Veon Bell started to figure out, and what this offensive line started to mold themselves around Bell, that he just waited for some blockers, and he kicked it on. He also was able to run straight up the middle for some of these plays, and he just looked like he was much more comfortable. Like I said earlier, the game slowed down for him so much more, and in addition to him rushing the ball, which again, only 19 carries. That's not like he's carrying it 30 times. 19 carries for 142 yards with average of 7.5. He also didn't even score a touchdown, which is mind-boggling almost with just how good his rushing attack was today. But he also caught a couple passes for 30 yards, and he was also split out even more times than that. So overall, just a great day from Jalen Samuels.
Yeah, it was good to see, and I know I saw some tweets about how this must mean that Le'Veon Bell's stock is going to take a hit and all that stuff. And quite frankly, I've been saying that all along, is that, you know, when you plug and play running backs the way the Steelers have had the success doing so over the past few years with people like D'Angelo Williams and obviously James Conner and now Jalen Samuels, there is some method to that statement, and the O-line certainly deserves a lot of credit, and they definitely came back with a purpose this week, because you're absolutely right. Last week, they got manhandled. They were out-muscled. They were out-physicaled, and that's not normally how it works, and I don't know why jet lag, whatever lag, something that Oakland puts in the water, who knows. But this week it was back to home cooking and back to the fact that, you know, they out-muscled the Patriots. They outperformed, and it was both sides of the ball, because, you know, the offense. Look, this is the part that disturbs me still, and it needs to be addressed in the second half of games. And I said this earlier, they just seem to vanish. They could have put. I mean, even Tony Romo said it felt like it's a game that feels like the Steelers should be up by 10 or more. And it shouldn't be this close, and it shouldn't be this heartbreaking and this, you know, tension-driven, bite-your-nails ending. And it shouldn't have. The offense had multiple opportunities to go up by, you know, over 10 points and multiple touchdowns, and they just continue to find ways to fail in the second half of games. You know, I think, like I said, they managed 3 points, which happened to be enough, and thank God for that. You know, they've said, we've been talking about this as Redemption Sunday, or Mike Tomlin has been talking about this as Redemption Sunday, and in many ways it was a double redemption, because they got the win against the Patriots, and Chris Boswell made a field goal that was big. You know, he missed one early, and a friend of mine asked me, is that the end of Boswell? And I said, if the game were to end right now, yeah, probably. But you know, if he gets a chance later in the game to make up for it, then no. Then I don't think so. And he did. So I think that Boswell sticks around, which I'm happy about. I like Chris Boswell. I think if he can get whatever this is, the yips or whatever it is, out of his system, you know, we have to remember he was a Pro Bowl kicker last year. And yeah, I know that, you know, once kickers go bad, sometimes they just go bad. But hopefully he can work this out and get back to the kind of money-making kicker he was. You know, I used to say it all the time. He was just money, man. Everything was good. So, but what is it? I mean, what is it that you see? Because I get aggravated both with play calling at certain times. I get aggravated by the fact that Ben's deep ball is really inconsistent. And while the first interception I put on Ben, because I think it was a ball he should never have thrown, the second one I kind of get. It's a quick throw. It has to be out of his hands fast. And Eli Rogers just gets in Antonio Brown's way because the defender is making him get into Antonio Brown's way. Kind of a fluke. So I don't 100% put that on Ben, because AB would have been wide open if Eli's not sitting there and not able to get any downfield any further. But,
and
you know, what do you see?
Before I go to the offense installing in the second half, real quick, I do want to get one point in about Chris Boswell, and then we can hopefully, at least for this week, put to bed his 2018 season woes. Like I've mentioned before on this podcast, I'm an IU football fan, as diehard at least as you can be for IU football with just how bad they are. But we just graduated last year a kicker that we had for 4 years, and even if you think the kickers are scarce in the NFL, you have not even watched college football, because if the amount of college teams. And we can't even find 32 kickers, but anyway, we've had this great kicker for 4 years. His name is Griffin Oakes. His freshman season, he hits a 59-yard field goal, one of the longest in IU history and almost college history, just so long and stuff. He was one of the most consistent kickers, at least in IU history, and he had one awful season. He had a Chris Boswell season that was just awful. I don't remember off the top of my head if it was his sophomore or junior season, but he was able to come back from that. His last year or two was just his normal stellar self. It's all 100% mental. So we'll just have to see this season. It's probably going to be more nail biters. He's probably going to miss a couple more, but let's at least wait till next season to see if it continues, because really it's just a mental thing. And I think he just needs to get past this season, get it out of his system, make him forget, and then start to get on to the next season. But you talked about the offense in the second half. I think a lot of the offensive woes, and you guys have all talked about trying to find a scapegoat, just trying to find someone to blame, and a lot of people don't really. And this is not you. This is just the Yinzers and the Twitterverse and everyone trying to find one scapegoat. But I don't think enough people over there talk about necessarily that it could be just everyone, because sometimes Roethlisberger makes mistakes, sometimes Brown makes mistakes, sometimes the entire offensive line, Tomlin, everyone, the play calling, the execution, the refs, the everything. Can go into it. And I think that's at least part of what's happened the past few weeks. But then you mentioned that one specific play with Roethlisberger's second interception. And yeah, Eli, I don't know what he was doing. He was just kind of sitting there. I'm not sure what you thought. I didn't think it was enough to warrant it, but Eli was at least trying to get around the defender, and he wasn't able to get past him just because the defender was almost holding him and just trying to block it in his way. I just thought that was a weird play. In general. So just a lot of different things that I think came into effect that's just kind of getting these Pittsburgh Steelers not able to score in the third and fourth quarter. But like you said, they do need to figure this out, and they need to figure it out fast, because you can't score 3 or however many points against the Saints and expect to win, no matter how much you're up by in the first half.
Yeah. And I mean, I agree. I believe absolutely that Eli was being held there. When you look at the review, clearly he's being held. The guy has handfuls of jersey to kind of hold him in place and uses him to disrupt AB's pattern, and that's fine. Look, sometimes the refs are going to call it, sometimes they're not. The refs were very. Look, I said at the beginning of the podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the bounced check that the Patriots sent the refs, because. Mm-hmm. The Patriots had some ridiculous number of penalties called on them. I think I have it in front of me here. The Patriots had 14 penalties for 106 yards, holding penalty, false start penalties, one after the other. And while there will be lots of people out there who now decide to say, "Oh yeah, really? See, we told you the Steelers get all the calls." Other than I think one. One call, I think, for PI early on that I didn't really think was a pass interference call on Eli Rogers that gave the Steelers a first down. I thought that was a little bit of a ticky-tack call and probably shouldn't have been called. The rest of these were legitimate penalties. Look, the Patriots' offensive line isn't that great. They were holding. Mm-hmm. and they're blatant holds. It's not, when TJ Watt is being pulled to the ground, it's a hold. You got to call it. Yep. The funny thing is that they seem to be laser focused on false starts this week. I don't know why that would be.
Yeah. I think this would actually be a funnier thing to go look at. We were just talking about the last time the Patriots really scored 10 points, if you don't count this season. But I wonder the last time the Patriots had over 100 yards of penalties on them, because it's always that the Patriots get overlooked. I don't remember. I think it was last season or something like that. They went like a game or two without getting one penalty on them. And
yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
No one ever plays that cleanly. But even if the Patriots fans or the fans that necessarily don't want to have the Steelers winnings or whatever, a lot of the penalties, except for of course a couple of the pass interference calls, but even if you want to argue those, which I don't think you can, even if you wanted to argue those, most of their 14 penalties were pre-snap penalties that are obvious ones that you can't really debate. It's not really a judgment call. So it finally.
Are you sure about that? Are you sure it's not a judgment call? I seem to remember a game 2 weeks ago. I'm just saying.
You would think. I know.
Tony Romo said this, right? When I think one of the false starts was a flinch by the left tackle, and it was noticeable. And he said, "Oh, when the biggest guy on the field moves, you can't help but notice." And I'm thinking to myself, "Yeah, you can."
Yeah, apparently.
But that's all good. I don't want to go back and revisit the Chargers game because I'm still mad. The refs stink.
Yes.
This time they look. There were a couple of nice things that they did. They got a couple plays right in replay. So I'll give them credit for that, but they still stink. So that being said, let's talk a little bit about the defensive side of the ball.
Before you get into the defense,
sure.
I just wanted to. So we talked about Jalen Samuels, the rookie. We also have to give a shout out to the other rookie, James Washington, giving 3 catches for 65 yards. Finally getting that one big catch, getting able to get a bunch of yards. Even though he got 3 receptions, he still had 65 yards. Congrats to him. Hopefully that at least sparks something up to where he can start getting into this offense more, just like that number 3 receiver, like we drafted him and we hoped he would be.
Yeah, absolutely. This was the game they've been waiting for him, and it doesn't have to be a ton of catches. It doesn't have to be a 200-yard breakout game. It just has to be enough that defenses have to take him seriously, and that was a good start. That was the kind of catch, combat catches and nice playmaking that they anticipated out of him when they drafted him. So it was. You're right. It was and it was wrong of me. I have to give him a GAM, a grown ass man award, especially for the first catch. So and obviously Jalen Samuels gets a grown ass man award for his performance. So. All right, let's flip the side. I can't even pick. To be quite honest, yes, Joe Hayden gets one for the int, right? Before we get into the dip, I'm going to do the grown-ass man awards right away. But to me, the rest of the defense gets one too.
Yeah.
The whole team.
I was thinking about this before we did the podcast, because this time we actually knew who was doing the podcast, unlike some episodes. But I was trying to think about this, and I was like, to be honest, except for those couple of offensive ones that we just give, I would give one to the entire defense or like the entire offensive line or just a huge team effort, because really it wasn't just one player that was that was just being exceptionary or something like that. It was everyone playing as a unit, both on the offensive and defensive side.
That was a Wolfism, exceptionary. I'm pretty sure you meant exceptional, and that's all good. I like Wolfisms.
I can't talk tonight.
It's all good. None of us should be able to talk. We're all drunk with joy. The defense, yes, they had a breakdown early in the game. It gave up the 63 or 64 or 65-yard touchdown. It was brutal. Everybody in the entirety of Steelers Nation went, "Oh my God, here we go again." And then it stopped. It just flat out stopped. Let's just look at what the Patriots' drives were like. They had a touchdown, right? On the first drive, then punt, field goal, interception, downs. Okay, that's an impressive line for just forget everything else that the Steelers defense did. Forget about who had tackles. Forget about who had interceptions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 punts in a row.
That doesn't happen.
That does not happen to the New England Patriots. Then they get a field goal. They settle for a field goal. Then my brother, who is an Eagles fan, he texted me. He goes, "You don't see the GOAT make those kind of mistakes." And I'm thinking, I am sick of. He may be the GOAT, but I'm never going to give him credit for it because he's a two-time loser, in my opinion. He's a Patriot and he's a Michigan person.
Yeah.
So he's out with me. But he's absolutely right. You don't see Brady make those kind of mistakes, and part of that was, while they only, I think, would they get him once? Let me look that up real quick. I think they only got one sack. One sack, which TJ Watt got. But they were all over him. He got hit a lot. They got several quarterback hits. The pressure was there. He had to move around in the pocket. And it just goes to show you, even Tom Brady can make dumb mistakes sometimes. And that was a dumb mistake. He lofted that ball, and Joe Hayden skied for it. And then when it came down to it, look, yes, they drove all the way down to where they thought they could, everybody was like, oh, it's going to go into overtime. They're going to score a touchdown. Oh, no. And the defense said, I don't think so. Not this time, fellas. We're done. They stood up, and kudos to them because they have been much maligned. They've gotten a lot of grief over the last 3 games about giving up late drives, not being able to hold a lead, all those things. This time around, they gave up 3 points in the second half, and that's it. So kudos to the defense. They're all grown-ass men. Now, is there anything else you want to pull out on the defensive side before we kind of break in to our podcast with one Joe Kuzma?
I do want to make, so yeah, you talked about the closing games, and you guys have also mentioned just I get just how annoying it is with just media people to talk about the Steelers and not closing games out and everything. And thank goodness that, because the last 3 games, the media people that have commented about the Steelers not closing games, no, they haven't really been, but they haven't watched the game, so they haven't been able to really comment on it. Thank goodness this defense was able to finally close out a specific game, and specifically the last 2. They had a stat on CBS coming up that the Steelers have in the NFL, they have the best final 2 minutes of the first half. Opponents have scored the least amount of points, and then the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter, the end of the game, opponents have scored the most points. And tonight they scored 0. The only 2 things that I think helped I guess when against the Steelers defense, the one thing, it was great that we actually saw New England receivers dropping passes, but the other thing was the only part that I didn't like about the defense was the couple times that the Patriots did drive down the field, they were really going on the run game, and the Steelers just couldn't stop the run game. But then again, on the other side, the amount of times Pittsburgh stopped the Patriots, it was just that definitely overshadows those few drives that the Patriots actually had. Yeah,
and I mean, I can't remember, when it was, because Cam Hayward got hurt at one point, and I can't remember if that happened during the point in time where they started gashing us a little bit for runs. But remember, even with those gashes, there always seems to be one drive in every game where the run game is more impactful than we think it's going to be, and then they adjust to it, and it isn't anymore because they only gave up 96 yards rushing in the game, and I think Michelle had 59. So it wasn't like anybody really went off on them, but there was that one drive where it was like, oh, gashed for 12, gashed for 16, and you kind of went, ugh. But I can't remember whether Cam was hurt or not during that time, and then he came back, and none of that may be impactful on this, but I will say this: they did get it straightened out.
Yes, they did. Exactly.
So, yes, they got hammered a little bit because they were probably overplaying the pass. I mean, remember, what was it? The Patriots didn't run the ball once in the first drive or the second drive. It seemed like it was forever before they actually had a rushing attempt. So exactly. I'm sure they were keying on the pass a little bit. But I want to give before this, because this is going to drive Joe crazy. I'm not even going to tell him I did it. He'll have to listen to the podcast to find out. There's a guy on Twitter. Many people will know him. Many Steelers Nations folks will know him. His name is Craig. His nom de plume is Eye of the Storm, and he's currently going by 12 Days of Coffee Christmas. He's he's a guy that I think is a really nice guy, but he can be frustrating because he has very volcanic opinions. But because he tweeted this out, and I feel compelled to give him a shout out for it, because he's one of the many folks in Steeler Nation who believes if you don't win a championship, forget it. It's not, then the season was a waste. And he tweeted after this, against everything I believe, if the season ends short, I'm good. I saw us best Brady, and that is enough for me. We stayed that bad word dragon. Booyah. And guess what? I agree with you wholeheartedly this time around, except that I'm still not quite sure I'll be 100% good, but I'll feel a lot better. Yes. If we don't win a championship, I will definitely feel a lot better about this season than I would have had we lost this game.
I agree with you, Brian. I agree with you.
So, in the meantime, though, we're going to flip over and let us get the Lord of the Manor on the call, because he purposely came at me and said, I want to give some grown-ass man awards tonight, so call me. And so I'm going to give him a shout. Noah, I appreciate your time on the pod, and it's always nice to talk to you. So
no problem, yeah.
Anything you want to leave off with before I bring Joe on?
Just a sigh of relief. Winning cures everything. Now, of course, the season's not over, and we're basically up against the clock with the last couple of games, but winning cures everything. Sigh of relief. We beat the one team that we haven't beaten in forever, and it's just nice to get a victory, let alone against the Patriots.
Absolutely. So as I said, I want to thank Noah for joining us, but now I'm going to pull in the Lord and Master himself. So joining us now, live from the road, the man, the myth, the legend, I'm not even going to try and come up with one of those things, Joe. It's Joe Kuzma. Joe, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing good. Hopefully this is acceptable enough for our listeners, but I couldn't help but join in on the post-game podcast driving back from Heinz Field because, had things turned out a little bit differently, I probably wouldn't be on this call, but considering that the Steelers defense showed up as a collective of 11 or more grown-ass men and shut down hashtag Edelman and Gronk didn't catch it with a 10-point Patriots offensive effort in a 17-10 win, I'm now out of breath. I think you've caught everything that I have said. I'm a happy camper, Brian.
As well you should be. As I said, it's a beautiful, beautiful day. And yeah, I gave Jalen Samuels a grown-ass man award. I gave James Washington a grown-ass man award. And then
I love you. Yeah. I love you for both of those. Both of those, I was concerned you would not have said that about James Washington, but he really found himself today. And Jalen Samuels, I had no doubt about.
Yeah, and then when we flipped to the defense, I said, look, Joe Hayden gets one for the Sky interception, but beyond that, I'm giving one to the entire defense because they just deserved it. This was a team effort, and Noah did some stat work to try and find out the last time that the Patriots only managed to put up 10 points, and he went back quite a ways and forgot about 2 games earlier this season. But against the Lions and whoever the Titans. But when you talk about December football, because remember, that's how we've only been hearing this all week. The Patriots, December. They never lose in December, and they already lost to Miami, which we'll give them a pass because they always lose to Miami. But this is December football, and they don't lose games in 2 in a row in December very often, and they don't have this kind of an offensive performance in December very often, and that is a credit to the defense. And I'm going to shut people down all week long if they want to go, well, this says more about the Patriots than it does the Steelers.
Well, I mean, people are going to say the Patriots found a way to lose the game. You know, it's usually what people say about the Steelers. Patriots got penalized, like 13, 14 times in the game. I mean, I don't have. I'm obviously I'm on the road. I'm headed back from Pittsburgh. I don't have statistics in front of me.
14 times for 106 yards.
That's just it's very unpatriot-like. But need I say, aside from those penalties, wouldn't you see Rob Gronkowski, 2 catches for whatever he had? Josh Gordon was supposed to be some savior, 1 catch for, 10 yards or whatever that he had, aside from the big play in the beginning, which was a very nice misdirection play called by Josh McDaniels and the Patriots and executed to perfection, where Chris Hogan, who's done nothing all year, was wide open. I mean, I thought the Steelers, personally, I wasn't going to get too in-depth with being, hopefully everyone I apologize for. You're going to hear 18-wheelers and everything in the background. You're going to hear a lot of, here we go, Steelers and F. Tom Brady and stuff like that. And in fact, had you caught me, Brian, about 10, 15 minutes earlier, I may have been screaming happy expletives from Heinz Field myself. But, I mean, this is a very uncharacteristic, not only game for the Patriots, but give the Steelers defense some credit here for shutting down everyone. They threw everything in the kitchen sink at Tom Brady. They harassed him all day. And how about the Steelers offense? Myself and Zach Meckler, the professor, we're probably going to talk about this maybe in the middle of the week. Whoever gets to jump on the Daily Steelers grind here as we talk about a glorious, glorious victory over the Patriots. Speaking of which, Brian, I had to text one of my Patriots friends who was more than drunk and obnoxious after the game last year when Jesse caught it. There was a point in the game where she decided to grow a hair and send me a text and say, huge stop when the Steelers went out off the field. It looked like Tom Brady and company were going to get the ball, drive down the field, and go up. Well, that didn't happen. Well, guess what? I copied and pasted her text it was big, period, stop, period, at the end of the game, because that's the kind of guy I am. It was just sweet. It was just sweet, sweet justice. I'm jumping around all over, but give the Steelers defense some credit. The offense, myself and Zach, we're going to talk about how does Eli Rogers figure into all this stuff? How does he get on the field at the same time as Ryan Switzer? Well, that's by creating the most, egregious matchup problems I think the Patriots have ever dealt with, all year. You put Vance McDonald on the outside, you put Eli Rogers on the outside, you have Ryan Switzer out there too, and then put AB and JuJu in the slot. What are you going to do there? The interior of their defense was soft. We kind of knew that going in. I never saw this ever coming. This was never on film. And then Jalen Samuels as well. We knew he could catch the ball, but, I mean, he was running for almost 8 yards a carry. I think he deserves the grown-ass man. A few of the other guys deserve the grown-ass man. And James Washington and also JuJu Smith-Schuster high-point the ball like no one else. Vance McDonald coming up huge with the touchdown, coming up huge later. There's a lot of praise to go around, and some people are still going to call for Chris Boswell's head. But a 48-yarder is still stone cold, in my opinion, to make it at least a 7-point game where the Patriots have to go the distance of the field and not just try and hit a chip shot to tie it, etc. I am very pleased with all of my Steelers family that's out there, and you know what? After losing 3 in a row, this looks like it's turning around now, and we'll see what happens next week.
Absolutely, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Oh, I couldn't say it any better than Fred Rogers right now. I'd go dancing in the streets.
Yeah, I told Noah I'm ready to go streaking in the yard. I'm so happy. And then I said, but I'm not going to because I don't want to go to jail.
Well, I mean, I could only imagine the fervor of Steelers Nation had they dropped this game 4 in a row with the Browns, Bengals, and the Ravens all winning today. So they keep pace, they control their destiny, and I'll leave it at that. You know what? You live to fight another day, maybe several more days, because when it comes down to it, you get into the playoffs, it's about who ends up in the victory column. Steelers end up in the victory with a win, with a dub that we definitely needed today. And that's all it's going to matter is who survives when you get into January.
Absolutely. Joe, thanks for adding your 2 cents, man. It's always good to talk to you. Hopefully we'll catch up during the week.
Hey, thanks, Brian. Thanks for patching me in. And, of course, hey, I miss all the listeners out there. Wish I could have jumped in on this one. But, hey, you'll get to hear more of me celebrating as the week continues.
Absolutely. So that's going to do it for this edition of the podcast. My name's Brian. His name was Noah, and his name is Joe. And as I always say, it's chaos out there, so be kind. And I'm going to add one more thing. F the Patriots. All right. Talk to you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.